Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Elvita Sari and I'm from English Education Department at Islamic State University Sultan Syarif Qasim Riau. So I make this video to fulfill my assignment of research and development with Sir Nuwardi, SPD, MED. In this occasion, I would like to explain about the historical and documentary research. So, happy watching! What is historical research? Historical research has been defined as the systematic and objective location, evaluation and synthesis of evidence in order to establish facts and draw conclusions about past events, born 1963. It is an act of reconstruction undertaken in a spirit of critical inquiry designed to achieve a faithful representation of a previous age, and seeking data from the personal experiences and observation of others. From documents and records, researchers often have to contend with inadequate information so that their reconstruction tend to be sketches rather than portraits. Okay, the next slide, choose of the subject. As with other methods we consider in this book, historical research may be structured by a flexible sequence of steps, beginning with the selection and evaluation of a problem or area of study. Then follow the definition of the problem in more precise terms, the selection of suitable source of data, collection, classification, and processing of the data, and finally, the evaluation and synthesis of the data into a balanced and objective account of the subject under investigation. There are, however, some important differences between the method of historical research and other research methods used in education. The principal difference has been highlighted by more 1963, who suggests that in historical research, it is important for the student to define carefully the problem and appraise its appropriateness before moving into earnest into the project, as many problems may not be suitable for historical research method, while on the other hand, other problems may have little or no chance of yielding any significant result, either because of the dearth of relevant data or because the problem is trivial. Okay, the next slide, data collection. One of the principal differences between historical research and other forms of research is that historical research must deal with data that already exists. Hackett 1955 argues that history is not a science with use direct observation as in chemistry or biology. An historian, like the archaeologist, has to interpret past even by the truths which have been left. Of course, the historian has to base judgment on evidence, weighing, evaluating, and judging the truth of the evidence of others' observation until the hypothesis explain all the relevant evidence. And the next slide, evaluation. Because workers in this field of historical research gather most of their data and information from records and documents, that must be carefully evaluated so as to it is their work for the purpose of the particular study. Evaluation of historical data and information and of them referred to as historical criticism, and the reliable data yielded by the process are known as historical evidence. Historical evidence has thus been described as that body of valid fact and information which can be accepted as trustworthy as a valid basis for the testing and interpretation of hypotheses. Historical criticism is usually undertaken in two steps. First, the authenticity of the course is praised, and the second, the accuracy or worth of the data is evaluated. The two processes are known as external and internal criticism respectively, and since they each present problems of evaluation that merit further inspection. Okay, the next slide, external criticism. External criticism is concerned with establishing the authenticity of genuineness of data. It is therefore aimed at the document or other source itself rather than the statement it contains, with analytic form of the data rather than the interpretation of meaning of them in relation to the study. And the next slide, internal criticism. Many documents in this history of education tend to be neutral in character, though it is possible that some may be in error because of the kinds of observed characteristics. Are particular problems arising from the question posed by Trevor 1969 is that obvious. This can be particularly occurred where life histories are being studied. The chief considered here as Plummer 1983 remain as research in examining possible sources of bias which prevent researchers from finding out what is wrong and using techniques to minimize two possible sources of bias. And the next slide, writing the research report. This stage is known as the process of synthesis. It is probably the most difficult task in the project and calls for considerable imagination and resource craftiness. The resulting pattern is then applied to the testing of the hypothesis. The writing of the final report is equally demanding and called to creativity and high standards of objective and systematic analysis. And the next slide, the use of quantitative methods. As the basic of all this art lies on personal judgment, and the comparatively recent past, however, attempts have been made to apply two quantitative methods of the scientist to the solution of historical problem. Travers 1969. Of these methods, the one having greater relevance of historical research is then of content analysis, the basic goal of which is to take a feral, non-quantitative document and transform it into quantitative data. Bailey 1978. And the next slide, life histories. Thomas and Nanike's monumental study, the police peasant in Europe and America, 1918, served as an appropriate introduction to this section, for the detailed account of the life and times of Ulrich Wisniewski is commonly held to be the first sociological life story. Next slide, preparation. Lamar 1983 draws attention to key factors such as accessibility and place and availability of time and the awareness of the potential informant of his or his particular culture's milieu. A good informant is able and willing to establish and maintain a close, intimate relationship with the researchers. It is axiomatic that common sympathies and mutual respect are prerequisites for the sustenance and success of a life history project. And the next slide, documentary research. Documentary analysis has several attractions by lay 1994. It can enable two researchers to reach inaccessible persons or subjects, as in the case in historical research, further like non-participant or indirect observation. There is little or no reactivity on the part of the writer, particularly if the document was not written with the intention of being research data. Documentary study is also useful in longitudinal analysis, as it may show how situations have evolved over time. Some documents enable large samples to addresses. For example, register of birth, marriage and death, census returns, obituaries in newspapers, and such like. Okay, the last slide. Reliability and validity in documentary analysis. Validity may be strong in first-person documents or in documents that were written for a specific purpose. Bailey 1994. However, that purpose may not coincide with the of research, thereby undermining its validity for research purpose. We mentioned earlier the problem of bias selectively being written for an audience and purpose different from those of the researchers. Attrition and selective survival, all these undermine validity. So I think that's all for me. I'm sorry for the mistake, and thank you for the attention. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.